Habs trade talks just keep picking up day by day, with more trade reports circulating out of Boston with multiple players, as we revisit something Arber and Basu said lately that is now making the rounds in the Boston Bruins news circles. Plus, another 6'6", 250-pound defenseman from Boston has some people interested in shipping him to Montreal. We have to dive into these crazy trade possibilities with an Atlantic Division rival, but it's not just that today. We gotta dive into Ivan Demidov, who has just fans hyped up like crazy, as you might have seen in yesterday's video, and also a huge update from the Laval Rocket as the AHL finals, Calder Cup finals are approaching, and this team looks poised to do something very historic. We got a bunch of great stuff to dive into on this live episode of Habs Digest. Jesse, great to be here once again for another live. We're starting off strong with Joseph Donovan and Simon Desjardins, both re-upping their hat trick and Rocket Richard tier memberships. Thank you both. Thank you, Frank Thibault, for being here. Norm Stein, winner of the giveaway. Jesse, what a hot start to the stream. I'm excited to talk about all these wonderful rumors with our great fans.
For sure. As we look to build up our team to kind of one day maybe represent Canada in the Stanley Cup Finals, like we know the Oilers are maybe looking like they're doing. I know they're not in the Stanley Cup Finals yet, Josh, and we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, right? But kind of feel like some Habs players are kind of looking at this Edmonton Oilers team and thinking like, what can we do to get ourselves in that very same position? We know Hughes, he's not taking a day off. He's just like Ivan Demidov, like Lane Hutson. Hughes is a general manager version of that. He's at the rink every single day in the office, putting in the work to really kind of improve this team. And he definitely has some interesting ongoings in the market here that he's definitely paying attention to.
Oh, there's so much going on in the market. I'm so hyped. But yeah, thank you all for being here. Once again, huge thank you to Joseph and Simon. Again, the Rocket Richard, you're so generous. Awesome. Be able to catch a few minutes of the live tonight. Leave a like and go Rocket. Yeah, leave a like while you're here. We got 130 people in here already. We got some great stuff to dive into. Thank you so much, everyone. Let's dive into Ivan Demidov first. Now, if you watched yesterday's video, which I'm sure all of you did, right? We're talking a lot about Demidov and how the big news right now, Jesse, is that he's staying in Canada, in Montreal this summer. He's not returning to Russia, but I wanted to talk about this with the fans because to me, this is so unbelievable for the future. Not only are we seeing here that he's going to focus more seriously on studying not just in English, but French as well. We're looking towards the future now of this lineup, and what I took the liberty of doing is building a prospective lineup here, where is it, on Puckpedia, with kind of leaving that 2C open. With Demidov there on the wing, I assumed we'd bring Heineman back as well. I just put $2 million as a placeholder. I don't think it's going to be that far off from it, but you can ignore that. You can just have him as the player. Looking at this lineup, looking at Ivan Demidov, Jesse, when we're talking about how excited we are for the future, I know we've talked a lot about him maybe jumping into that first trio at some point, but like this hype train is just leaving the station for him. Maybe we need to put him on a train animation as well. But like, again, looking at this team right now for the future, got to get the fans' opinion too. Like the second line for him, as much, I think you've said this before as well, with all the work he's putting in, that might, for a 19-year-old, it's crazy I'm saying this, but that might not even be that long-lived.
No, absolutely. And again, he's just going to elevate whatever line he's on, but it's going to kind of be like a 1A, 1B type of line, I feel like, with Demidov, as long as he's kind of there. But we'll have to see. It'd be very interesting to see if he can take Slav's spot, because we know that sandpaper that Slav brings, it's valuable and it matters. And there's a great spot that he kind of fills within that line. But then we have to kind of juxtapose that with just the sheer, like, kind of game-changing skill that Demidov has. And you have to feel like there is a world where very much he would be well-suited. Playing with Nick Suzuki, Cole Caufield just comes down to a skill thing of maybe just having three of arguably your most skilled offensive players all there together kind of going forward. But going to be very interesting to see. We know that right now, like Demidov, he's not just putting on that effort, you know, kind of on the ice right now. And a big thing that the Habs development team has kind of noticed early on is that, like, situational awareness of just kind of being aware of where he is on the ice, that positioning, like all great players, kind of everything comes from there. But he's also putting on that work off the ice right now. Like Josh, for instance, did you know that Ivan Demidov can now answer full-on questions in French? All right, no, I'm just joking. He's not there, but he's working on his French and his English. He's going to get there as well. Just imagine, though, like Ivan Demidov, like being able to do press conferences, maybe after a couple of years. Let's not push it, but maybe just a little bit of being able to answer some questions would definitely be interesting. But I'm hoping for this young man that he's still going to be winning Rookie of the Year for in the KHL. I think he still deserves it. I think that would just be like for everything you had to go through this year, Josh, like, wouldn't that just be like such an amazing cherry just on top of the season that he just had?
Oh man, like it absolutely would be, and he absolutely deserves it. Like, I mean, you see him, even other teams who drafted the other players. Like, I saw some Nashville Predators reaction to Yegor Surin being one of the top 3 guys. Even their fans were like, well, Demidov's gonna win it, like, whatever. Like, everyone knows he should win it. We'll see if he does, but like, regardless, again, the hype is insane for him, and we have a poll going in chat right now asking, all of you fans, go vote in this. Will Demidov make the top line at some point this season? Because I don't think it's crazy, but I also like don't really see that top trio being broken up just for anything, right? I mean, I think they only get broken up if there are some serious struggles. I think they've proven enough, especially Jesse, that stat we talked about recently where all 3 of them are in the top 6 in the NHL in 5v5 points per 60 minutes while losing in a game, which is one of the most insane stats we've ever seen. But yeah, Demidov is going to do some amazing things. And hey, talking about his French, Jesse, you know there's one word that this guy knows. He knows gagner. He knows that gagnant is what the one word that he would say. He's a winner, right? He knows how to win. I can guarantee you that's the first word that he learned. We're going to stop the poll right now to see what the fans are saying. We're going to end it right there. And oh my gosh, that actually comes very close. 51 votes, which means 26 people said Demidov will not make the top line this year. 25 people said he will make the top line this year. That's pretty crazy there. That's, you know, the fans are split, but hey, that's the thing. I think like a lot of people are saying, Jesse, the issue is not whether Demidov is good enough. The issue is whether, you know, you can really move Slav off it. Because let's be honest, like you said, 1A, 1B, like, you can be the most effective offensive line while not being the top line on paper. I don't think there's any rush to move anyone off the top line. What I do think is that the Habs are going to do everything they can to find someone that can complement our boy Demidov here on the second line.
Well, that's just exactly it, kind of going forward. And that's why kind of bringing in the right player is going to matter so much here, where you feel like maybe bringing somebody again with like, again, that veteran experience. I know we're leaning towards a little bit of those younger guys, but is that really what makes the most sense in the situation? Like, potentially, it maybe could, but if you want to make sure right from the beginning that you're kind of leading Demidov and not making him feel like he really needs to run that line right from the beginning, you're getting a vet in that position to really just put him in that base place to succeed. It's interesting if they feel like, oh, like, because with Demidov, you're open to maybe bring in a guy like a European player versus a North American player. Like, these are all kind of options. Again, we're going to get into it later on in the video. Like, some of these decisions are, of course, affected by what's in the market and what's available. But for sure, Kent Hughes has a set kind of priorities of what ideally he would like.
Yep, and Kent Hughes is ready to cook. Do I still have this? Come on, let's get this going. Oh, he's ready to cook.
Someone cooked here.
He hasn't yet, but he's going to, and a lot of people are saying that it could very well be the draft. That's what I'm excited for. Like, a lot of chats are saying, Jesse, like, I'm just sick of this. Like, I'm sick of not having trades go down. I'm ready for something big to happen because I know it's going to happen sooner rather than later. Leave your Demidov hype in the chat, but we got to move on to a different kind of hype, and we got to talk about Laval. Now, I was at the Laval game, the game 4. I think it's just, look, if I'm on the island, well, Laval's not on the island, but if I'm in the Montreal metro area and I go to a game, they lose. The 2 Habs games I've been to the last few years, to be fair, not great teams. I didn't go this year. They got blown out. The 2 Laval Rocket games I go to, they got blown out. Doesn't matter. Guess what? I left, and what did they do? They won the game 5-0. You can thank me for that in the chat, actually. It's thanks to me that Laval is moving on. I just want to take credit where credit is due, of course. No, but, like, seriously, Jesse, this kind of bounce-back performance against a team that is pretty tough to play against in Rochester, a couple big NHL-level talents there, Devin Levi and net, Yuri Kulik playing some good hockey, Konsta Helenius, a lottery draft pick, like, a lot of good guys. Laval came in and made it look easy. Barré-Boulet and Sean Farrell getting going in the first. Condada getting the goal. Joshua Waugh getting a goal. Oliver Kapanen getting a one-timer there to seal it, as if it wasn't sealed already. In the third, the no-sell, the no reaction when he scored it. These guys have been unreal. So many guys having a good playoffs. The veterans, Barré-Boulet and the newly re-signed Laurent Dauphin. With the young guys, Farrell. What a second half he's had. Joshua Waugh up to 8 points in 9 games. Even Mailloux after a disastrous game 4, a nice bounce-back game 5. There is like beyond Montreal, this is the thing I'm the most hyped for, Jesse. And again, we got to remember, this is straight up one of the youngest AHL teams, and they're doing stuff no one thought possible. Sounds a little familiar, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And again, like, getting a dominant win in an elimination game when it really matters here the most, like, this is just such a great look for this team. Again, Cayden Primeau just continuing his roller coaster of a career, whether it's in the AHL or the NHL, now coming back, obviously, with Laval. And it seems like he's kind of cementing, again, his number one spot. He's found a way, which, again, it's a little bit, as much as we love Jacob Fowler, you can't help but kind of feel good for Kaiden Primeau in this situation. Like, he's kind of deserved it here. Like, this is absolutely phenomenal that the Laval Rocket, they're going to the Eastern Conference Finals. They're going to be playing against the Charlotte Checkers and, like, not just getting that win, but doing it in a big way. It's like, where obviously Primeau is standing on his head, where obviously that first line just continues to play so well with Sean Farrell in the mix there as well. Joshua Waugh, who's been a little bit under the radar, but then in this series, again, having 8 points is absolutely phenomenal. Like, I wanted to see that. Like, it's hard to really kind of have too many issues with this team, right? Like, we know they're a young team. We know certain players. We know what their strengths, their weaknesses are. But at the end of the day, they've shown a team where even if they have certain strengths and weaknesses, right now those strengths are definitely outshining it. They're playing to what they do the best right now. And I mean, a very well-coached team. It seems like a team that just has amazing chemistry. They're playing for each other right now.
That's the big thing, and it's the culture as well, right? The culture of winning in Laval and having these guys, like you said, play for each other. Like, when you go watch this team play, the depth in the lines is crazy. Like, sometimes, I mean, you can tell what the best lines are, of course, but when you watch Laval, it's like, every single line can do something big at any given moment. You have Owen back here. You have Florian Xhekaj there. You have your top line with Barré-Boulet and Farrell. And then it's like, you just got guys, like every single line is there to like really make it difficult to play if you're the other team, right? And whether it's because of their high-end skill, they're like a guy like Barré-Boulet Dauphin putting on great NHL level shows, or the high-end grit with a guy like Florian Xhekaj, Luke Tuck making it hard to play against, and even the defense as well, where you have guys like Adam Engstrom, who puts on a one-man showdown there, has looked like their best defenseman for large parts of this series and this playoffs. David Reinbacher getting 4 points in 9 games, while still maybe not looking his best after coming back from a big injury, of course, all this stuff. Still producing pretty crazy numbers. And even their captain, Jesse, again, it goes down to leadership. Lucas Condata has 3 goals in 9 games this playoffs. He had 5 goals in, I think, 62 or 63 regular season games. He only had 1 goal, like, halfway through the season. These guys are learning how to step up very early. Got like Oliver Kapanen finally getting his feet under him. And the ability for not only our boys, the Habs, to step up when it matters, to really show, like, look, I know we lost to Washington, but, like, when we needed to get that win against Carolina at the end of the season, we did it. We went out fighting every single game. That has also spread down to Laval, where that is one of the biggest things that you can't really teach unless you've been there, which is why this is so important, again, like we say all the time, not just for Laval itself, but for the future of Montreal, for any players that go through that system.
Especially a player like David Reinbacher, where just any hockey he can get and just playing the most right now is obviously huge for them. Like this run that Laval is going on, just the opportunity to play more hockey is so big for him. Obviously for the Montreal Canadiens too, of a lot of these young guys. Like we're looking forward to training camp already, even though there's a little bit of time. Like it's gonna be here before we know it, and just the fact of these guys going on a big playoff run right now, it really just helps for starting your training camp on time. We have Ivan Demidov obviously staying in town to kind of train, get ready, and then you have to feel like guys like Owen Beck, Mailloux, Kapanen, Reinbacher, that obviously will be part of this training camp next year. All this kind of increased reps at this highest level just kind of means coming in shape on time to camp. I think is just absolutely so huge for just that competitiveness that we already have for this team and kind of those roster battle spots. Like it's just getting that much tighter the way that this kind of goes on, where I mean a lot of those vets are going to need to know that these young guys coming up from Laval next year, they're going to be ready and they're going to be gunning for their positions.
That's a huge thing too, and a big part of that too is that like not many teams have that luxury of having the kind of system that Montreal does to force your other guys to say like, listen, like, we're not going to go out and get someone to replace you, but, like, if you're not showing that you're better than someone in our own system, I'm sorry, your spot's just not there. That's just how it works. And we have so many guys that project to at least be, like, bottom 4 defensemen, bottom 6 forwards, that, like, if they are pan out the way we want them to, like, a guy like Oliver Kapanen, Owen Beck, Joshua Waugh, we'll see, but, like, on defense, I mean, I'll bring this up, like, because it's kind of crazy. Like, this is just, like, prospective NHL guys for next year on defense. Like, assuming we bring Struble back, because he's an RFA, like, I just, again, put him for $2 million, just ignore the number, but, like, it's probably not going to be far off that. But still, Matheson, Carrier, Guhle, Hutson, Struble, Reinbacher, And then you still have Xhekaj, Mailloux, and Engstrom. And like, while I agree with the chat here, people have been asking what's like been the best defenseman for Laval this playoffs. It probably still has been Logan Mailloux, but he does have big lapses as well. Like we saw in game 4 was one of the most horrendous games I've ever seen. Probably my fault, to be honest. But like, he still has some bad decisions, bad penalties, stuff like that. But his high-end skill is unmatched. Like, his high-end offensive skill is better than anyone else in the system, minus like Leighton Hutson, who's on the team. But a guy like Reinbacher has looked so solid. A guy like Engstrom has looked unbelievable. There's gonna have to be decisions made, which again, Jesse, like, it almost forces Montreal's hand in a certain way where it's like, yeah, we want our guys, like, we're starting to hit that tipping point, and this actually will transition well into our next topic, where like, yes, we want our young guys to force our guys on the roster to work their butt off to get their spot, because guys coming up from Laval, no one wants to lose their spot to that, but that's these guys' livelihood. But at the same time, Montreal is very active in saying that we don't want to block out our young guys with our NHL level talent. So it starts to make me think like, hey, trades are coming. And a guy like Mailloux has been in these rumors because of his performance. But again, it wouldn't shock me, like with all these names we're bringing up, a lot of these guys probably did not even be here for training camp, as crazy as that is to say.
For sure, which leads to some big questions, especially stylistically, which obviously brings me to a question for the viewers and as well as you, Josh. We might even need to like get a poll on this one here. It's like, is Logan Mailloux Mike Matheson 2.0? We know that they're both offensive players where they have their kind of their pluses offensively, but we know that defensively that sometimes there can be some shortcomings as well as a result there. Like for you, do you put that in the same basket? Like should we just learn to just accept that for Mailloux, like right off the bat, that he's going to bring those offensive things, but there can be those defensive problems there? Or do you think that he can kind of evolve? Is Logan Mailloux a Mike Matheson kind of archetype there, in your opinion, Josh?
I think there are similarities and differences, because I don't ever see Mailloux being able to play your PK1 or being able to play 25 minutes a night. I think that while he does, like, I think if he learned, maybe, but also I'm not saying Matheson's the best guy you want doing that every night either. I definitely see the similarities. I think Matheson does bring a bit more of an overall game, as much as he does, like, in terms of making bad decisions while having that nuclear offensive potential. I think there's a ton of similarities there. So honestly, in a way, yeah, like, can I say like 1.5? Like, because I do get you, like, that frustration that you get seeing that, oh, he's able to do such a great thing offensively, and then you watch him have an incredibly bad turnover in his own zone. That's something Mailloux does as well, and something that a guy like Noah Dobson does. So honestly, like, I don't think it's that far off. I think there are definitely differences. I think Matheson you can at least rely on to have maybe more solid overall games, but like, that's the kind of thing, Jesse, where there absolutely is a give and take. The vote is very split down the middle as well. Like, give and take where, like, he could go off for, like, we still see that we're talking about Mailloux, like, he's having some bad games. He has 6 points in 9 playoff games. He was an all-star last year as an AHL rookie. This guy has a ton of trade value, and I think other teams will fit him best. I just worry, and again, maybe this is just me overthinking things, but I worry with the state of Montreal's D-corps. Now, I know Matheson only has 1 more year, and it's possible Mailloux spends next year in Laval as well, and then maybe he fills in for Matheson as we move maybe Hutson or Guhle, whoever ends up playing the right side this year, back to the left, right? So, like, you know, we have that ability. I think Mailloux could be a good replacement for Matheson. I just don't think he brings 100% of what Matheson gives, if that makes sense.
Well, and that's just it. And I think that we need to be honest when evaluating players, that there's not going to be like not one player that's just going to be completely well-rounded at every part of the game. And like, we really kind of need to like almost accept that at a certain point. And I think that that's totally okay to have, just as long as you don't have too many guys having that same set of specific skill and kind of kung fu style, if you don't mind me saying. It's like really there, right? So that's the big thing kind of going forward, is that's what we need to figure out with a Mailloux, where like Matheson has the value in the organization. The same time is like, you need to make a judgment call of like, how many guys can we have playing a similar type of game? And again, I don't want to be too quick to just kind of say like, you know, PSA, ship Matheson out of town here, but like, I'm almost like, I'd rather, because I know what we're getting out of Matheson. I feel like that you can kind of project like, okay, we know what we're getting there. Mailloux, I think like we can't say for sure like, oh, we know exactly his type of his game. Like, he's always going to give you good offensive production, but just expect some defensive shortcomings. I don't know if we can just kind of paint him with that brush. So that being said, while, you know, that variable still unknown, like, I am much more willing to kind of give Mailloux a little bit more bandwidth kind of going forward. I think that that's going to be an interesting test for Kent Hughes going forward, in terms of We know the amazing relationships that he has with players, but I want to see if Kent Hughes is really able, when it comes down to it, like even a player that he likes and has a good friendship with out the ice, that he's able to make those objective decisions when, hey, we might have too many guys playing a similar type position, and we maybe need to give a chance for a younger blood to see if he can do something different for all that upside, which I think you do need to explore, while at the same time kind of walking that tightrope act of not having too many D-men playing a similar type of style.
You know what? Hey, it's the more we talk about this, the more my mind goes back to Justin Barron, and there's a reason we felt fine moving on from him. I still think Mailloux is a better prospect than Barron was. But hey, like this Barron had some great seasons in the NHL, was very good in the AHL when he was sent there. We moved on from him for a different type of defenseman. That turned out to be one of our better trades in the past couple of years, with Carrier looking like a stud, honestly. And there's some good points in chat as well. Like, Mailloux was just 21. Like, Matheson didn't find his stride really until like he was a bit older, like in his mid-20s. And so giving Mailloux a bit more runway to really find himself, find his game. Like, again, we don't have all the patience in the world, especially with how many good young players we have, especially a guy like Reinbacher there, that we can't just be waiting for 3-4 years for Mailloux. But it's all to say, like, there's a world where he ends up being a very, very solid NHL level defenseman. So I'll end that poll now. It ends pretty close, actually. I would think it's 43%, 57%, 57% saying no, Mailloux is not Matheson 2.0. But like, I think a lot of people in the chat, from what I'm looking at, agree, Jesse, that it's like the play styles. Having too many of the same style is not great. But we got to go to a super chat here of coming in from Ethan Mods. Ethan, thank you so much again, guys. Leave some love for Ethan. Leave some likes on that message. Hey, while you're there, leave a like on the stream as well. We got almost 400 people here. We'd love to hit 100 likes. If only just 50 of you hit that button, we'd hit it. Thank you so much for watching, by the way. Jesse, Ethan says, it just makes you appreciate Hutson that much more when you talk about the upside and downside of Matheson and Mailloux. And I completely agree. While fans of other teams will still harp on Lane Hutson's defense, as people who watch him every day, yeah, the advanced metrics, whatever, he has some of the toughest defensive deployment in the league, mind you, but he goes out there and he's not a huge negative on defense when he's out there. He's just not one of those guys that makes really bad turnovers in his own zone. Like, occasionally, he's still young, he's done it, but not nearly at the frequency that we're talking about with these other guys. And Jesse, I couldn't agree more. I mean, Hutson is just one of those guys that, like, I don't know, every single team should be jealous of us having him, because at his size, still better defensively than a guy like Mailloux, honestly, even though he's a lot bigger. He plays with so much hustle, he's so fast, he brings so much to the table. I mean, I know we love Lane Hutson, but sometimes we just got to sit back and appreciate it.
For sure. And that being said, we love Lane Hutson here on the show, Lane Train, but it is fair that Ethan brings him up too here, that it's like, because he still is obviously that offensive guy. He still has those defensive shortcomings, just still not the same and not as often. That being said, it still did happen a couple times with Lane Hutson. He had a learning curve, and that'll be a big thing going for him. It's like, the thing about Lane Hutson, though, is he'll probably learn from some of those mistakes where we kind of see those repeat things from Matheson. The big thing is going to be for Mailloux is if he can not repeat the same mistakes too often. As you kind of get a little bit older on in your career, it's a little bit harder to kind of change your stripes. And for Hutson, it's the same case. That being said, like, I'd like to hear again, like, let me know in the chat, and like Josh, like, obviously, like with Hutson, he did have a couple of defensive lapses, but like when a guy is doing that type of offensive production that he is, you tend to kind of forget it and not be as hard on him as maybe a guy that, is maybe having those lapses and then obviously not producing in the same way offensively. I know for myself, right? Like, you just love Lane Hutson so much that it's like, if I would see like Matheson do like maybe the same thing that Hutson did sometimes, it's like, I'd give Matheson hell, right? But for Hutson, you kind of give him the benefit of the doubt, kind of considering other things on the ice. I think that that's obviously kind of an ongoing thing, and there's lots that Hutson does on the ice. I think to like ingratiate ourselves, sometimes we do need to notice like our partiality as fans, but like with Hutson, again, it's like that offensive, production to really kind of know that. And then obviously the hustle that he brings and everything else, like we know as long as we're getting that effort, that learning, that know-how, that experience is going to come in, and he's going to improve defensively. Like he is really going to improve defensively while getting better offensively. Like that's the thing about Hutson is like, he's going to get better at both. And that's what's really scary about him going forward.
Oh man, like, and again, for a rookie defenseman to put up the historic scoring he did, to also not be that bad defensively, like, you just wonder how he's going to improve on that next year, right? That's the biggest thing for him. He has been unbelievable. But yeah, I mean, great message, Ethan. I also want to get to a couple other, there's been a lot of members in chat. I want to get to some of these messages as well, because we've been going so hard talking about all this stuff right now. I got to get to the chat. You wonderful people in there. If you mean he'll cause us problems with the bad defensive play, yes, in terms of Mailloux versus Matheson, I think there's a lot of very interesting stuff there. Derek Rendell saying Mailloux equals Tyler Myers style. Hey, Myers is a big fella. Hey, Canucks Digest loves to come in here and throw out their Tyler Myers trade to Habs ideas, for sure. Ethan saying if Logan Mailloux could figure out his defensive game, he would be a second-line defenseman, no question. Again, that's a big if, because that's been his biggest knock for years now since he was drafted. So you wonder, like, is he ever going to get there? But again, if he can, he still has time. He's young. If he gets there in the next 2, 3, 4 years, like, he could very well be a very solid defenseman. And guess what? That's why I think a lot of teams might come knocking for a guy like Mailloux if they have the chance to buy low, so to speak, on a guy that could very well break out very soon. So great point. I got the lane train emojis. Derek Rendell saying Jared Davids is making the Habs team next season. Call me crazy, but my gut says he does. And Mark Orr saying Hutson was a rookie. They're allowed to make defensive mistakes. Matheson should know better at this stage of his career. I was going to say that, Mark. That's a fantastic point as well. When you're making fewer mistakes at like the age of 20, 21, it's someone who's like a big time vet who's always had those mistakes, for sure. Jared Davids is an interesting name too, Jesse. And just to quickly bring that up, is he even there in the top 10 scoring? No, he's not so far this playoffs. But Jared Davidson had looked really, really, really good this regular season. I think he was second on the team in goals behind Barré Boulet. Don't have a ton to say on the Jared Davidson front, but I will say that he does maybe seem like one of those Heineman candidates where it's like, you don't fully expect him to kind of make the team, but he just shows up and he's like, oh, well, he's made himself inevitable, and it wouldn't surprise me to see, maybe even if it's not him, one or two of these guys from Laval making that kind of impact. We saw it last year in training camp with a guy like Engstrom, and we were starting to think, oh, maybe he'll actually make the team. I think there might be a couple surprises coming in next year.
Davidson's just like a really reliable type of player where you can just kind of bank on him. You're going to get pretty consistent type of guy. Kind of like an Owen Beck, maybe to a lesser extent. But that being said, it's like Davidson's still going to have a chance, possibly, maybe just to a little lesser extent than Owen Beck, but still a very good chance to carve out an NHL career for him. All the same there. So obviously that career is not said and done. He's a very interesting player, right? Where just he kind of stays in the mix and he just keeps playing well and doing his job like he should, right? And that's obviously that consistency. It's a great way to get an NHL job.
Really interesting to see what's going to happen come training camp. But hey, before we get to training camp, I want to talk about some interesting trades, because trading is what we're all waiting for at this point. I know the playoffs are still going. GMs are talking. You might see something soon, but no dominoes have fallen yet. You got to expect it's going to happen closer to the draft. But that's the big point of this stream here. We got to talk about these, drop the mic, escalating trade talks, because every single day, Jesse, people are talking about what Montreal could do. Should they trade for him? Should they go for this guy, that guy? Now, there was one article that I linked down below, and they took this from Puckpedia's Player GM page, basically, where you can have users submit their trade ideas. And it was an idea that we wanted to discuss with you guys in terms of just the framework, because I don't think this exact trade makes a ton of sense for Montreal, but in terms of framework, wanted to get your guys' opinion, because it's controversial. You see him in the thumbnail. It's Nikita Zadorov, and the proposed trade on Puckpedia was Nikita Zadorov for Owen Beck, 2 seconds, and a third. This, to me, Jesse, look, Zadorov had a really, really, really bad start to the season. I mean, the first half of the season, he was not good. He signed for another 5 years until 2030. He's 30 years old now at a $5 million cap hit, but he is one of the hardest players to play against in the NHL. Let me just start by saying this trade, way too much. No chance ever. But I'm curious, less so on the exact trade package for a player, specifically Nikita Zadorov with the fans. I'm more interested in the framework of this, because a big, very hard to play against defenseman who did come into his own with Boston the second half of the year, one of these guys that is unbelievably hard to play against in the playoffs with a decent career history of production, this kind of player, I think, actually does fill a void for Montreal, only if they don't see Arber Xhekaj filling that same void. So on the subject of getting maybe you have a take on Zadorov specifically. I mean, I'll bring up his stats and again his contract so the fans can look. Because honestly, my opinion is I don't want Zadorov on the team. I think he's a funny guy. But I think that the idea of Montreal going out, bringing in another big physical presence that goes beyond Josh Anderson to Arber Xhekaj, in that sense, I would actually not mind giving up some decent draft capital to get someone like that, even if it means, moving on from one of our young guys.
Yeah, if this was a right-hand D, I'd be a lot more interested. But I think for just that left-hand side, same time, we know Boston, Montreal don't like to do a lot of trades.
Yep.
Boston definitely needs a lot of picks here. That being said, it's like for Ken Hughes, I would maybe pass just for like this stylistic fit. Like we need more of a right-hand D. But at the same time, it's like Ken Hughes, he's going to look to improve this team in terms of goal scoring, but also in preventing goals. Like those are the two key metrics that if Ken Hughes can have his ideal offseason, even if he feels like a Brian Buck or Mailloux are close, if he can get somebody on maybe like kind of a 1-2 year deal where he's still giving them time, but improving this team now, again, while keeping that space for the long-term future, like that's what Ken Hughes is going to do. And that's something that the analytics department is absolutely going to be telling Ken Hughes, like, this is what we need to improve on. So, I mean, entertaining still the idea of a guy that plays like a very physical, more of a defensive game. Again, 6'6", 248 pounds, like is an absolute beast. If we're talking about playing a little bit more of that physical style, like definitely checks all of those boxes. From there, for me, I think I still, definitely I think that right-hand side, we need to be very specific. On the left-hand side, we just have too many talented defensemen, which is a great thing to have there. But so anyway, not the perfect fit, but again, the good idea of maybe bringing a little bit more of that defensive kind of background to our decor with David Savard no longer being a part of the team.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's leaving a huge void, which is probably where this trade idea comes from. And my guess is this is from a Bruins fan that posts this, because Zadorov, again, has been rather inconsistent, and you're paying $5 million for a bottom four defenseman per year for 5 more years. But again, one of those guys, like, if you make the playoffs, that contract becomes so much more worth it, right? Like, Jesse, we remember having that guy like Joel Edmundson, right, on that left side throughout that Stanley Cup push, right? Having a big guy who can cross-check people and get away with it and, like, almost hurt people, but also bring a bit of an edge offensively, it's like, it's worth something. I just think this is a gross overpayment for someone like Zadorov, in the hopes that a team like Montreal would be desperate to go get someone physical because they got so physically outplayed. That's what this trade screams to me, and based on what the fans are saying, I think they're all kind of agreeing on that same sense. Like, this is a big overpayment. I don't think anyone's denying that. But I mean, look, if we're talking like a couple seconds and a third for Zadorov, and we just remove Owen Beck, maybe you start to talk about it, because we have, again, if he was a right-hand shot, maybe more so, because like you said, Jesse, we have too many left-hand guys. Like, would Zadorov draw into the lineup every night over Arber? At this point in their careers, probably 2 years from now, I don't know about that. And for a guy, $5 million per year, like, it just doesn't make that much sense. But I think you're bang on with, like, the type of style that Montreal is looking for. Look, we're watching Florida right now. It's a team that is full of grit. They're all playing for each other. The only team left in the playoffs that doesn't really have a kind of like decent edge grit-wise, or like insane top-end talent. Well, I mean, there's really not many. Like, the Oilers don't have a ton of grit, but they have, 2 of the top 3 players in the world, and any given night, they're the 2 best players in the world. So you can't really, it's apples to oranges. The Dallas Stars have a decent amount of grit, but also one of the most stacked top 9s, even full 4 lines that I've ever seen. And then out east, we're seeing how Florida, they beat Toronto into like despair in Game 7, and they are just manhandling this Hurricanes team that, again, is pretty young, doesn't have that grit. So bringing in someone like this, I think, is a good idea, and I think the chat's kind of on board with not this trade, maybe something similar. And this is an interesting one. Derek Randell is saying Brandon Montour would be my first pick of right-handed guy, and I mean, Montour's an interesting name, Jesse. He kind of got in my bad books after that, record-breaking overtime goal. If you remember that one where Hutson pinched up. Look, again, we could go through a lot of right-hand shot defensemen that we could trade for. There's one guy in the playoffs right now, Aaron Ekblad, we've brought up before, Jesse. Grit is putting it lightly. That dude has borderline injured a few people, has injured someone so far in this playoffs. But someone like that, if you're talking about a guy that makes his name known in the playoffs for better or for worse, pending on restricted free agent. I mean, we're not going to dive too much into Ekblad specifically here, but again, that kind of style, I would not be opposed going after this offseason, whether through free agency or a trade.
No, we need to, again, prevent less goals happening against the Montreal Canadiens. So getting that defensive type of guy, I think absolutely kind of fits for this team going forward. Again, it's going to be it's an interesting situation to navigate, right? Because again, you don't want to block out a Reinbach or Mailloux, these great prospects, but we know at the same time of how much, this team really needs that support, and getting somebody like a Carrier, how this helped this team. Like, you'd have to feel, again, to get back to the Bruins points, like, they would probably love to have like an Arber Xhekaj or something like that going the other way. Like these certain teams are kind of loving the opportunity to get a player like that. And I would just hate to see that. Like Arber Xhekaj in a Boston Bruins uniform, like that is never happening. We really can't let that happen. I think we need to hold on to those players. Like, and I believe like Xhekaj, like I could believe him playing. Like we don't need to trade him for a Zadorov. Like he can be that type of player for us. I really kind of believe in that. And again, with what Florian's doing right now, I think it's given a great example. Again, we can't give up on either of our Xhekaj brothers.
No, they do such amazing things, and their progression looks so good. Arber, even this season, like this season was a bit of a roller coaster for him, right? Like he needed to figure out his defensive game, be more disciplined, goes up and down, and figuring out where he fits in. Yet he still managed to make an impact. And we talked about this the other day from Diego T. Like, I don't think you're going to get a first for him. I don't think you're going to get a top 4 defenseman, but he sweetens the pot for a big deal. And I don't agree, right? Like, I mean, I agree he could sweeten the pot, but I don't think you move on from him. Like, again, if we're talking a guy like Zadorov, I don't think Xhekaj is that much worse every single night. I do think Zadorov, at this very moment, I don't think it's crazy to say Zadorov is a better player this second than Arber Xhekaj. I think it'd be kind of crazy to say that he is a worse player, but again, we're talking a couple of years down the road. Give the guys some time. So I think the fans tend to agree here. We got the Joseph saying, don't forget to leave a like on your way out. Oh, hey, well, look at that. We're at 69 likes. It's a nice number, but guys, look, we got almost 400 of you in here. If even 10% of you hit that like button, we would hit 100. We'd love to hit 100 likes in here. We got people saying Bowen Byram, someone saying that's too small. Ethan saying, if you look at any Stanley Cup team the last 15 years, they all have a big, strong, physical defense. And we made the Cup finals in the back of a big, strong, physical defense, Jesse. The Habs had that as part of their culture. I mean, hey, look, what better guy than like Shea Weber doing every single thing. Imagine if we could just bring prime Shea Weber back onto this team. Wouldn't he be like the ultimate fit? He's the ultimate fit everywhere. He's the kind of guy that you don't find growing on trees, right? We're hoping some of our guys can turn into something like that. But I mean, we've had these big defensemen kind of coming in and out here, whether it Ben Sherrod, and even Jeff Petrie was big, but he could score offensively too. He could get physical. Joel Edmundson. So having some guys like that could be good. But let's transition now to our final topic of the day, and it's trading for a center. Now, Arpon Basu, like we talked about, this article is also linked down below. We talked about it recently, and go check it out again, because Arpon outlines a lot of big names here. He brought up one name, and it's Pavel Zacha, and he's a name out of Boston again, which is a Bruins-centric video here today, or stream, but it's very interesting. This, today, like I know Bruins Digest did a video on this today, shout out Kirk, but like, this has been going around Bruins circles, talking more about, hey, like, what if we move on from someone like this? And it's starting to gain some traction. And I wanted to revisit the Pavel Zacha idea and to get some live fan opinions on this, because Pavel Zacha, he had a very solid season, right? 47 points in 82 games. He's a guy that can probably get you, 15 to 25 goals, 50 plus points on any given season. I don't necessarily think he is that 2C guy that can fill in this big gaping hole right here in the lineup. But again, if you move maybe Kirby or Newhook to the wing, or maybe you move on from one of your other wings or something like that, Zacha coming in at least to be a third line center would be an amazing third line center, because he's just a better Christian Dvorak. And look, talking to Boston, like he has a good cap hit, 4.75. He's basically just a Dvorak replacement, who again I think has a lot more offensive upside. Solid Corsi on a really bad team. Pavel Zacha, again, Jesse, 6'4", 207. So not only does he bring that offensive upside, he brings a bit of defensive grit at times. He's also a big guy, right? He's going to be a guy that's hard to play against. So I like this idea. I really like the idea of bringing in someone like him. Again, the problem does arise when you're looking at the team and you're like, where does he go? Because I don't really want to just slap him at the 2C. Because I think if you do that, then you're not closing the door on another 2C trade. But then if you're making another 2C trade, you're kind of coming to terms with, all right, we're definitely blocking out some of our young guys. So I like this idea, though. As much as it's going around in Bruins circles and the Bruins and Habs are unlikely to make a trade, a 6'4" center with decent upside is really hard for me to throw away,
True, but the production's not quite there for me from what I need. Like, I just feel like, Josh, we need to figure out this 2C kind of situation before entertaining anything else, because I like Beck, I like Kapanen. I don't want to be blocking their spots. Like, the production, besides like this last year, 57 and 59 points previously. But if we look before that, again, kind of goes off a little bit of a cliff there for myself. But at the same time, while the production maybe isn't there perfectly, Kent Hughes has to pay attention to what's going on in the market. That does definitely affect this all the same. And at the same time, would be somebody that could maybe provide a little bit of that vet, kind of presence to Demidov, while at the same time, obviously, like, this is a guy that is very gettable under the right circumstances, I believe, even though with the Boston Bruins. For me, just not, that perfect fit though, production wise. Like Josh, like I know we're being bullish, right? Like for a lot of the times in terms of like what we really want from this team kind of going forward. We've tried some different things like with Kirby, Dach. I'll even say like the centers experience going back to like even Jonathan Drouin. Like I think Kent Hughes understands the gravity of really getting this situation right with a key player that's going to push the needle. And while we're hearing some rumors, right, and you need to pay attention to that, obviously, and that relates to the Montreal Canadiens, I'm looking at, like, I want, like, a production of, like, a Thomas Hertl, like, type of guy. Like, this is what I would really potentially look like at that 2C position. Josh, like, you mentioned, like, a William Karlsson to me, like, in the past, off camera. Like, why is it that you feel strongly maybe about a potential that player if we're talking about 2Cs for this team?
That's a good question. Actually, you know what? Now that we're talking about Vegas, let me just grab some stats here because I think that'll be nice to back up our points because I'm gonna be honest, I don't know them off the top of my head. So no, I have to admit that I don't know it, but I'm gonna bring up some stats here. And so I like, first of all, I want to shout out Joseph's comment there. He said Xhekaj can be a 2C, but just not, well, actually, I think he said he's not a 2C, but I think Xhekaj can be a 2C, just not for us. And I think you're right, like Jesse. And there was another comment there saying like Xhekaj is the kind of guy that you're like on a cup contending team, you're like, holy crap, he's their bottom 6 center. And that's kind of what I see, right? And I know the 2C is the most urgent thing. And I just wonder if there's a world where maybe they don't rush into, I mean, not even rush, if they don't see, like, I think if Kent is patient and he doesn't see a move he likes for a 2C this offseason, because that's a possibility. I don't want to think about that because I think there's going to be something available. But if Kent doesn't see a move that he genuinely thinks will make this team better long term, and it's like, maybe we'll go for it during the season or next offseason. I think it should happen this offseason because I don't want to say it's a failure otherwise, but that's obviously our biggest need if we want to improve this team. Having Xhekaj fill that thing for like 1 year, like we've talked with like a Nelson, and then moving him down could work, but again, that's not ideal, and that's like very like, oh, but if this works and that works, chain reaction, not going to happen. So if I'm looking at William Karlsson here, Jesse, I'm just going to bring up his stats, and I'm also going to bring up Thomas Hertl's stats, just for us both to go through with the fans, because I think those are some very, very interesting names. So let me grab that and that. I'm going to pop back here. I'm going to wait for these screenshots to save. Oh, I love doing this live with the fans and live with everyone, Jesse. Let's get into it here. So let's bring in, first of all, William Karlsson. So you asked me why I like the idea of a William Karlsson. Well, the reason I like, I don't know where to put this. I guess here. Hi. I can't even really see this. You know what? Here, let's hide this and let's go into this view so that we can see it a little bit better. Sorry, fans. You can't see your own chats right now. Doing this live, doing this for the people. That's what we're doing. So, bring in William Karlsson's stats. Kind of big there, but we all know William Karlsson had that insane 43-goal year for Vegas. But Jesse, to me, he's one of those guys, straight up one of the best face-off guys in the league. 58% this past year, 56 the year before that, 55 the year before that, 52, then 54. And he has that offensive upside where last year, 60 points in 70 games. Injured this year, missed a chunk of the year, 29 points in 53 games. But the year before that, 53 points in 82, 35 and 67, 39 and 56. He's not that 40-goal scorer he was. I don't even think he's that 30-goal scorer at this point. But for his cap hit and for his face-offs, again, I don't know if he's necessarily that long-term 2C, but he's another one of these guys where if he's in your bottom 6 long-term and you just have him at the 2C for now, he can hold that down and be a better bottom 6 guy. I tend to agree with you, though, that Thomas Hertl is a much better candidate, and I think he fits a lot better, depending if Vegas is willing to move on from him, because, again, like, their priority right now is Eichel. They don't have the money. We'll see. Hertl, Jesse, I mean, what a great call by you as well. Like, 58% last year, 56% this year, 55% on the dot. Unbelievable on the dot. 61 points in 73 games this year, 31 years old. Decently big contract, not too huge. This is the kind of guy that I see being a 2C. He's a veteran. Vegas might be pressured to move on from him if they don't have the money to do it. He's a left-hand shot. He's unbelievable on the face-off dot, and he eats 17 minutes a night. He's going to be more on a team like Montreal, and if you put him with guys like Demidov and Laine, Jesse, to me, I think you're bang on. We might have to talk about Hertl a bit more because I genuinely really, really like that idea.
I would just love that too. Again, a little bit of that European connection. You have to feel like sometimes, which again, those vibes, right? Like this is going to be about getting Demidov right. Like do anything, operation, make Ivan Demidov happy on that on that second line. I think it's going to be so important. That's why I feel like Kent Hughes is motivated. He's going to want to really make a deal that does push the needle going forward Vegas, they're in a situation where they could definitely use some picks as well to kind of transition, do something. They have some questions where they're maybe looking to do something different. This could be a really nice kind of opportunity for them to retool on the fly. It makes sense for them in terms of cap, obviously getting some of the picks that they need there. So for me, very interesting in terms of what the Montreal Canadiens can really offer. And for me, for Kent Hughes, like even though the young guns kind of make a little bit more sense, the more we talk about this sometimes, I think that Josh, probably especially if we're looking to be a playoff team, that getting a veteran at that position for me could be really the move going forward.
Yeah, and I tend to agree, right? Again, you want a guy who's going to be around for at least a little while, but is like, you don't want them to be so young they don't have any experience. Hurdle has lots of playoff experience, a bunch of great stuff there. And I actually just want to check his contract really quick, just so I can get that in my head. So he's halfway through his contract that pays him $8.1 million a year. For that production, I'd gladly eat that. But we also have a wonderful chat here from Ethan, and I got to wait until I can actually read his chat because trying to do this on the other monitor, there it is. Gonna go back here to Ethan because thank you so much for the super chat, Ethan. The $20 is so generous. Leave some love again for Ethan, everyone. And also, we're 3 likes away from 100. Oh, we'd love to hit that. Ethan, for $20, thank you again. I really like Vincent Trocheck. He's a brilliant two-way player with good offensive numbers. He was 3rd best in the league for faceoffs. He was also 6th in the league for hits for centers. Plus, his contract is around $4.5 million. I mean, Jesse, if that doesn't tick every box you want, I don't know what does. And I think that's a great point, Ethan. And let's bring up Trocheck's stats. That's what I just went and fetched. I mean, of course, an all-star back in 2016-17 with Florida when he had 54 points in 82 games. I mean, this past year for New York, 59 points in 82. The year before, 77 points, 64 points. I mean, 59.3% on the dot this year, Jesse, while also taking an unbelievable amount of faceoffs. This guy took over 1,500 faceoffs this year. 910 wins to 624 losses. Vincent Trocheck is a name that's been brought up by a few outlets before. This guy straight up has 2C level production, 25 goal scorer. Again, he's 31, he's a veteran, but at a very reasonable cap hit. He had 214 hits, one of the best in the league on the faceoff dot. Decent defensive instincts, 6 shorthanded goals this year for Vincent Trocheck, mind you, while also being that 25 goal, 60-point level production. I mean, if New York's willing to move on from him, Jesse, again, he's just another name that to me, it gets hard to check any more boxes than Vincent Trocheck has.
Absolutely. And we see with Nick Suzuki of having a center that can get you some good production, but playing a solid two-way game, how that's often some of the missing X factor again, not just to win in the regular season, but in the playoffs, that those attentions to the detail, which, Vincent Trocheck really plays that type of game. So I think that's huge, when kind of looking forward. It's kind of like William Karlsson in terms of playing that two-way game, but just that increased production on another level with Trocheck, which I think is just absolutely insane. And again, what you need to evaluate when we're making these decisions going forward, or Kent Hughes rather, is that obviously the offensive production matters, but if you're going to bring that, but then show that you can bring that defensive game, that matters. We know we need more of the goal scoring, and that's going to be a huge thing that you want to kind of handle with the 2C and bringing into this team, but obviously just that overall play is really what it's all about at the end of the day.
Yeah, it is. And so Trocheck, I'm seeing here 5.6 million, regardless, still not very high. And he does have a modified no trade clause, I believe, as someone in chat pointed out as well. So he could void trades to a few different teams. But, the thing is, he's not the biggest guy, but he plays bigger than he is, which I think is one of those things, too, that you can absolutely deal with. Heading into year 4 of 7, so you'd have him for 4 more years. $5.625 million. He played some 1C, and on worse teams, he might be a 1C, but Trocheck's one of these guys, Jesse, like we said, he just fits so many of these bills that Montreal really wants. The problem is New York really going to move Vincent Trocheck to Montreal unless Montreal pays him a lot? Look, we have not such a great history with the New York Rangers, some rivalry there, but I think it's a great idea as well. And you know what, Jesse, there's so many other names. We'll be talking so much this week about so many names. I love the thought of this because a trade's going to go down very soon. I love talking about these names, and it's very real. We say to each other often, the guy that Montreal goes and gets this offseason is almost certainly someone we've already talked about. And if it's not, then I'd love that too, because I love surprises. Like that Line thing, I think we did talk about him briefly until that happened. It's oh, wait, it's real? That's kind of what I'm feeling for this offseason. And honestly, I couldn't be more excited.
For sure. And it's just amazing that the Habs are in a position where they can actually entertain such a plethora of different options, and where they have the picks and they have the prospects, they're in control. Like, they have the power in this situation, whether it's like signing somebody in free agency or making a trade. It's like they have a lot of guys on the table, and they can get a lot of these different guys. It's just going to be, what does Kent Hughes want to pay, and what really makes sense kind of going forward, finding that balance, which is going to be so interesting, right? Because you can get those big names, but just it's not going to do us any good if we're overpaying as well. So again, finding that sweet spot with that balance and with these trades is just absolutely phenomenal. Like, Josh, for one, I'm just so excited that we have these type of players that are very realistically available for us. And right now, again, it's going to be about finding, like, balancing that future and the now. But I just hope that Kent Hughes in all this, while we still want to make way for the future, I think you want to make a decided step into being a little bit more competitive. You also don't want to half step and just say, okay, well, tomorrow and Michael Hage and 2C at certain points, like, yes, that's great, but Kent Hughes can't make his plans for the Montreal Canadiens based off prospects and the things that we don't know for sure. We need to start making decisions based off, intelligence that he really has right now going forward.
And I think he will. But, that's like, it's so tough because that step is probably one of the scariest when you're in the position that Kent Hughes is in.
Yeah.
Because you're like, you got to take a swing eventually. You can't just keep going for guys. Hey, look, our picks are turning out great. Our development is great. And we made a great little trade in the season to help us win. Everything they're saying is right. The trades they've made so far have looked really good. The draft picks have looked awesome. Everything's turning out great. But this big swing, this moment where you do decide to give up on some of your young guys or future draft capital to take that step for someone bigger and not just rely on your own guys getting better, that's very scary. You don't want to mess it up. And I have full faith in Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes for making that move, whoever it may be, free agency, trade, whatever it is. Could not be more excited. And we're going to share it all with you guys as well. It's going to be amazing. As Mark Orr, one of our wonderful Rocket Richard Tour members, are you guys doing a live watch along for the draft's first round next month? Certainly plan to. I'm moving across the country, but should be back in my new home in time to do a live watch along, Jesse. I'm so ready for that. Last year's was unreal. Can't wait for this year. Can you imagine if we get Gary Bettman going back up there again and we have a trade to announce? You might want to listen. It has to do with your Montreal Canadiens. Flashback to 2022. That'd be pretty crazy, hey?
Oh, that'd be absolutely nuts. No, it is so much fun covering the draft live. Obviously, just so much fun. Last year, obviously, just so many amazing memories made from there. We're looking to continue it. We know that there's lots of things on the table. We already got some great picks already in that first round. So, we're going to be there to break that all down.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. We got a lot of people saying, go hot for shoot Will Guhle from the Rangers. Hey, congrats to Team USA, I guess, for winning gold. Guhle was on the ice for that. Nice shot by Thompson. Congrats to Switzerland for making it as far as they did, to be honest. Really, really proud of that team. He sure looked really upset after that loss. Going to overtime? Anyway, crazy stuff from Team Switzerland. Unbelievable. Someone said offer sheet nice. Hey, why not? We got Ryan O'Reilly's name thrown out. This is the whole thing, Jesse. We have so much content coming. So many big names that we love to talk about. You guys love too. Even saying, I like my young players on the team, but I would also like to have a guy who's proven and will provide for this team. That's that scary step. It's absolutely that scary step. So anyway, I can't wait for it. But guys, I think that'll have to do it for this live episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, hey, just leave a like on your way out. You know we love to hit 150. We're 37 away. If you enjoyed the stream and you haven't hit it yet, just hit the button now. We really sincerely appreciate it. It means more than you could ever know. Any final thoughts before we sign off into the night, Jesse? A lot more trade talk, I'm sure, is coming soon.
For sure. Kent Hughes, he's not sleeping this offseason. His mind is bent on getting that. Okay, no, maybe he's resting a little bit.
Get your shot out,
Kent Hughes, he's putting in that work to get us that 2C. Can't wait to see how this all shapes out very soon.
I can't either. Hey, if you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe, share the channel with your friends and family. We love seeing new faces around here. Every single stream we see new ones, and we want to thank all of you, though, for tuning in every single day. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you all in the next one.